How's it going, everyone? Kind of a bummer video today. Not really a lot of happiness going on right now. Now before we get started on the subject I'm going to talk about today, I want to let you guys know that I'm not normally into this stuff where I kind of, as I call it, really? You're going to break my glasses, you goofy girl. Okay, well, I'm going to take those off apparently. I'm not really into the whole reposting of videos, or as they call it, riding the bandwagon of what's trending. But I figured today's subject is something that needs to be talked about, considering it's a very upsetting subject, and it shows how terrible a lot of the stuff that's going on in our country is right now. So please don't judge me if I say something that offends you in this video. So as you can see, I'm joined by my friend Sophia here today. There's a very important reason for that. Now, some of you, if you are reptile enthusiasts, might have heard what happened. And for those of you who have not, something that just happened, they're calling it the Holy Thursday Massacre because they happened just before Good Friday, before Easter. So what happened was, so kind of background on it. In Florida, if you guys don't know, Burmese pythons are an invasive species, and Florida in the last couple of years has passed a law which is very unjust, very, I would say, cruel and mean to both the animals and their owners, where they've moved Burmese pythons, reticulated pythons, a lot of reptiles onto what is now from the conditional species list to the prohibited species list, which is very upsetting and, in my opinion, kind of wrong, considering that most people, almost every person I've ever met that keeps animals like this, does a very good job of it, and they do a very good job of, hi, don't bite me in the eye, please. They do a very good job of caring for those animals. So anyway, they passed this law, prohibited species, Burmese pythons, big pythons, they've all become prohibited. So in other words, you had 90 days to get rid of the animals. If you didn't get rid of the animals, you would be criminally charged, which is very wrong, considering that most of these people are law-abiding citizens. They're great citizens. They have, outstanding everything, and all of a sudden you're making them a criminal just because they own an animal, which is very wrong. So back to our original subject. So what happened Thursday was a gentleman. Now, I don't know him personally, so don't think, oh, he knows him. I don't. The gentleman was Mr. Coffee in Florida. When this law was passed, he, reached out to Game and Fish, was very supportive and very helpful to them in, following the law and trying to do whatever he could to stay a law-abiding citizen. They weren't working with him. They weren't helping him. And again, guys, I don't know all the information. That's my eyeball. Please don't bite me. I don't know all the information. And I'm referring to you guys what I do know. And he reached out to Game and Fish to have some help, because he had a bunch of Burmese pythons, reticulated pythons, a lot of these snakes that they considered prohibited. And he was trying to do what was right. They weren't working with him, they weren't helping him, and then all of a sudden, Thursday, they showed up, and from what I've heard, they weren't exactly going to tell him what they were doing. They were saying they were in the area investigating what they called an escaped reticulated python. So they were investigating his animals. Then, once he let them in, they told them, hey, we're here to kill your animals. Or as they put it, humanely euthanize them. And let me tell you right now, they did not do that. They did not humanely euthanize them. So they very much forced their way in under a lie. And again, guys, I don't have the video of this. I don't have the technical skills to add that stuff yet. If you want to look it up, literally just search Holy Thursday Massacre, boa, or snake, and it will pop up. It's being covered everywhere right now. I actually, sadly enough, I didn't hear about it until one of the channels I love to watch, Camp Kennan, popped up a video about it, and then I heard about it, and this really upset me, because I actually had a whole different plan for today of what I was going to do, how I was going to talk to you guys. We were going to do another Teddy Talk video. Instead, I decided that this needed to be covered. And now my frog is trying to interrupt me. But I decided this needed to be covered because this is a very important subject. Anyway, back to our story. This gentleman, Mr. Coffee, let them in. They lied to him about why they were there, and then they proceeded to kill all of his remaining Burmese pythons and reticulated pythons. And when I say they didn't do it humanely, they took a bolt gun to each of these snakes' heads and they bolted them in the head. They literally shot them in the head with a bolt. In what world is that humane? That is not humane. And then, if you watch the video and you read the articles, they tried to make him help by holding down some of the snakes so they could shoot them in the head. How is that right? I mean, that'd be like me asking you if I was in this position where I had to kill some of your animals, and like say it was your dog or cat, and I told you, hey, you need to hold down your dog so I can shoot it in the head, or a cat. That's just wrong. That's terrible. And then they proceeded to just throw the animals in the trash. No respect, no nothing. They literally just shot the animal in the head and threw it in the trash can. That's very wrong. It's not humane. It's very disrespectful. And I know this is cliche to say, my heart goes out for this guy because, you know, in the reptile community, I like to think that we're a very tight-knit community. We're very close together, and, you know, if someone loves reptiles as much as you get to know them, and you get to love them, and you treat them as a friend. So, yeah, I can imagine if this happened to one of my animals, it would be devastating. And this is sad because this is not where the story ends. And this is not why this story's, as they call, taking over the internet. So, not only did they proceed to shoot all of his snakes in the head with a bolt, and then just throw them in the trash, they took one of his snakes that was completely legal. It was not illegal. He was allowed to have it under the law. It was a boa, and that's why I'm actually holding my Sophia here, so you can see a boa. And they shot her in the head. And sadly enough, she was pregnant, guys. She had babies. And if you don't know, boas give birth to live young. They don't lay eggs. They hold on to the babies inside of them, and then they give birth to live young. And they killed her and all of her babies. And the saddest part is if you watch the video, they realize right away that they killed the wrong snake. And what's even worse is there was a tag on the tank telling them not to touch the snake. There was, I mean, this guy followed all the laws, guys. He labeled his snakes. He let them know, hey, this is a red-tailed boa. It's not a python. He told them multiple times after they rused their way into his shop that, hey, that's a boa. Leave it alone. And guess what? They didn't care. They still grabbed the snake and shot it in the head and then realized they grabbed the wrong snake. My thought process is if you're, quote, professional and you know your job, you know what you're doing, you would think that you wouldn't make a mistake like that. You would pay attention to doing what you do. I mean, guys, this is a boa, okay? So some major things about boas you can tell is, one, I know it's hard to tell. Most of you are probably like, a snake's a snake. Boas, if you look on the top of her nose, they don't have the little heat-seeking pits that pythons have. Also, the coloration is very different. And my thought process is, if you're a, quote, professional, and you, sorry, my phone keeps going off and won't shut up. If you know what you're doing, you should be able to tell the difference between a boa and a python. Now, I don't have a Burmese python. I don't have reticulated pythons. All I have right now are ball pythons. And as you can see, they got the little heat-seeking pits up front, and the head shape's different. I mean, they're completely different snakes. And my thought process is, if you're a professional who is being trusted to carry out this job where you go and kill people's basically family, you should be able to tell the difference between an illegal snake and a legal snake. Because, you know, not only did you kill this gentleman's, for all purposes, family member, kid, pet, loved one, and you killed them when you shouldn't have killed them because it wasn't an illegal snake, it wasn't a prohibited species. then you shouldn't be doing your job if you don't know the difference. You shouldn't be, and I hope 100% that these 3 officers are held accountable for what they've done. I am not anti-government. I'm not anti-law enforcement. Hell, I have law enforcement in my family. I respect law enforcement. But at the same point in time, I mean, I was even a firefighter once, guys. And yeah, I know that's not law enforcement, but you still, I was military. I worked with the government. My thought process is this, and I lived by when I was in that position. You are held to a higher standard. You really are. That also means you need to take your job seriously, and you need to actually pay attention to what you're doing. Oh my God, my phone won't shut up. Quit texting me, dude. But, I mean, it's one of those things, guys, where, you know, if you're going to do that, you need to be held accountable, and you need to know what you're doing. And like I said, I'm not anti-law enforcement. I love law enforcement. I'd like to work with them. Game and fish, I want to work with them. I don't want to make enemies with our game and fish. Where are you going, you silly girl? And so, you know, guys, I don't want to speak out and make everyone go, oh, all of the uniform is evil. No, it's not. Just sometimes you get people who act stupid and do stupid things. And it's terrible. I think 100% they should be held accountable, and I think this needs to be fixed. I think the Game and Fish Department in Florida needs to go back and fix these laws that they put into place for no reason. And I know some people will be like, well, they are an invasive species. Only the Burmese pythons are. There are no reticulated python populations. They only put reticulated pythons on the prohibited species because they're a big snake and they don't want them reproducing in Florida. That's the only reason why. There are no wild breeding populations of reticulated pythons, guys. And what also worries me is there are other states heading the same way as Florida. New York is one that I know has passed a lot of laws about animals. And it worries me. I mean, luckily I live here in Missouri, and we don't have a lot of those terrible laws. And I hope it stays that way because I love my animals. I want to be able to keep my animals. I want to be able to use them to educate and to show people the beauty and the, you know, that animals like, you know, say the snakes. They aren't terrible monsters. They're actually amazing animals that can be crazy, but they can also be friendly, and they develop trust and bonds with you. It's not just a mindless animal that only goes, oh, food, and does its own thing. They actually form bonds with you. They trust you. She trusts me enough that, you know, she lets me pick her up. She doesn't bite me. She lets me hang out with her. She loves on me. I love her too. Per se, you know, do they have the same mental, social things as we do? Probably not. But at the same point in time, I like to think that she has developed a bond with me. But that being said, guys, this needs to be fixed. I don't want all these states to take up these actions like Florida's doing, because it's ridiculous. They are being very biased and very, for lack of a better term, they are targeting and bullying, especially reptile owners. The government is doing that very heavily. And here's the thing, guys, even if you don't like reptiles, they're not going to stop at reptiles. I mean, Florida's now passing it where fish and birds and insects, any exotic species you keep as a pet, Florida's trying to get rid of that. To where you can only own a dog and a cat. Which is annoying because it's like, you know, if, say, she escaped and got out in the wild, she's called an invasive species and they will kill her on sight, basically. But, you know, say if my cat got out or if a dog got out, they're just called feral and they just bring them to a pound and that's it. Whereas dogs and cats are 100 times more destructive than this snake is. Because dogs and cats not only destroy property by scratching, digging, chewing, they, a lot of them will kill and eat tons of different animals. I mean, you can look it up online, especially, I love my cat, don't get me wrong, I love my cat. But cats are terribly invasive animals. And I mean, look at islands. There's a lot of islands where populations of animals have been wiped out because settlers brought cats, and the cats kill either their food supply or they killed it. Speaking of the devil, they killed it. And I mean, that's how animals like, you know, the dodo went extinct. Not per se specifically because of cats, but because, you know, we brought over rats and cats and dogs that killed them, their babies, and their eggs. And guess what? The dodo went extinct. Stuff like that. And that's what upsets me, is they're bullying and picking on reptile owners because they're like, oh, it's not a furry animal, so we can pick on them. It shouldn't be that way, guys. It should be, if it's a pet and it's a loved one, yes, should there be guidelines in place? Yes. But at the same point in time, they need to work with us and not try to just outlaw us. I mean, Mr. Coffee is a law-abiding citizen. He's a professional businessman. He's been doing this a very long time. And it's only because they weren't working with him and they weren't doing nothing, and he was trying so hard to get this fixed, but they, in my opinion, they personally made it to where they didn't do nothing so the timer would run out on him, and then they came and bullied their way into where his snakes were being held, and they killed them completely inhumanely by shooting them in the head. That is not humane. That is a terrible way to dispatch animals. I mean, again, I go back to, how would you feel if someone showed up to your house and say, get off that, you goof, and say took your cat, and in front of you either had you help hold down the cat, or they shot it in the head in front of you and then just chucked it in the trash? How traumatizing would that be for you? And that's why I feel is terrible, because I bet Mr. Coffee is that way right now. He is traumatized, and he's had a huge loss. I'm sorry for the bummer video today, guys. Like I said, I had something completely else planned, and we were gonna do other things, but then this was brought to my attention, and I figured this needed to be talked about. This needed to be covered. Now, US Ark, Florida, is trying to repeal these laws right now, and they are also now fighting for this gentleman. I think that is amazing, and I encourage you, if you get a chance, go to US Ark, Florida. They are primarily for reptile keepers, but they cover everyone's, basically all pet owners' rights to own pets. And I implore you, please go support them, because the only way we can stop this, in my opinion, completely, incredibly unfair and unjust laws that they are placing like this, is if we band together and we fight it together. That being said, don't be a mean person. Don't send hate mail. Don't threaten people. Don't give violence. Do this justly and civilly, so they know, hey, reptile keepers aren't crazy people who live in their basement. They're actually amazing people. Like, I know all of you are. You guys are all amazing people. Hey, anyone, in my opinion, anyone who owns reptiles is an amazing person. It doesn't matter orientation, race, nothing. You know, in my opinion, if you own a reptile and you love your reptile, we're already friends. I think that strongly. Now, I know, like I said, this was a very depressing video, and I'm sorry that it went on for a while. But I hope you guys get this message, and like I said, I will warn you, it is a very graphic video. But check out the video of the Holy Thursday Massacre, and just type in that, and then type in like boa, and it'll show up. Trust me, it's everywhere right now. And you'll see just how unjust and terrible this was. And it's terrible, because, you know, I love my animals. I suffer from depression very badly, and if it wasn't for my animals, I don't know what it would have happened. It would have been a lot worse. My animals have helped me come out of my depression, and if I wasn't allowed to have them, it would be very hurtful and very detrimental to me and my health. So anyway, I hope you guys, I know it's a bummer video, and it's a sad video, and I'm not one, I don't like to do these videos a lot, but sometimes they have to be done. But anywho, I hope you guys don't judge the channel on this one video. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And like I said, my thoughts and prayers go out to Mr. Coffee and his family. And I really hope that justice is served for them in this case, because that was so wrong what happened to him. Well, I hope the rest of you guys have a great day. And like I said, we gotta get together, guys. We gotta, reptile keepers, we gotta stick together, okay? Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.